Hello and welcome back to Blow Up the Team. Jeremy here today. We're going to be doing a draft grade for the Houston Texans. Um, Really quickly, any video clips that you see in this video, you can find the original link down in the description below. And of course, we own none of the clips. They're all NFL highlight clips, so we obviously don't own any of those. With that being said, I've got Matt here. I'm wondering,
Hello.
I don't think he'll probably. And normally this is me kind of going through the off season, but he'll probably chime in at one point when he gets heated about something. That's usually how this works. Um, but other than that, I say let's kind of get into it. Let's talk about the Texans, who in 2019 they were 10-6. They had a pretty solid season. They had some playoff success. They had a comeback. It was an exciting season to be a Texans fan. Showing some promise with a young quarterback, um, promising team. Um, and then the off season happened. Trading DeAndre Hopkins and a fourth round pick for David Johnson, a second rounder this year, and a fourth round pick next year.
What an ass trade. Like seriously, what a complete ass trade. I'd be like Texans. They got so much fucking talent and they never do anything with it. And then they decide, oh, let me get rid of one of our biggest talents, probably our biggest talent, and say, oh, let's get a lesser talent who gets injured all the time. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, what a complete joke. I'm like, what an absolute travesty. It's like, oh yeah, we have a really great playoff team. Let's ruin it because David Johnson. Wow.
Yeah, um, I'm probably not going to be as harsh as him. But what I will say is that I don't see why this play makes any sense, or this trade makes any sense. Um, they did name Bill O'Brien to general manager as well as coach, so I don't know if this came from him and there was maybe some rift between him and DeAndre Hopkins. I have no idea. Um, but the move makes very little sense to me. I don't think that I think they will regret this very quickly. And Texans fans, I'm just sorry. You had one of the best wide receivers in the league, and I think it's gonna your offense that was already kind of on paper. Let's talk about the offense for a second. If I'm going to go there. 13th in yards per game, 15th in passing yards per game, 9th in rushing yards per game, and 14th in points per game. Honestly, for having a top three wide receiver and a young quarterback, I would have expected them to be able to throw the ball around a little bit more. They still had Will Fuller, they still had Kenny Stills to be able to spread out, create some room on that offense. So I don't understand the move. I think that they already had a solid running game, a top 10 in rushing yards. So, they already had a solid running game. I would rather them, re-sign those guys and kind of run back that offense than to do what they did and kind of take out the shining star of that team. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the chemistry aspect of it will gel this team together. I have no idea. Not trying to force the ball his way so often. Sometimes you do see that happen. But what I will say is this: um, the the offense, I honestly feel like this football team almost overachieved a little bit last season. Like if you go by the numbers, you can't, other than like their rushing attack, you can't really point towards the one thing that this team did completely outstanding that makes them a playoff contender. The way that they looked the most of last season. Just to quickly touch on the defense, 28th in yards allowed per game, 19th in passing yards allowed per game, 25th in rushing yards allowed per game, and 19th in points allowed per game. So the defense wasn't the shining star. The offense was kind of just overall middle of the pack kind of. Um, I'm not gonna say. I mean, they looked like the eye test says that they were better than average offense, but the numbers don't back it up. Um, Now they did trade a 2020 second round pick for Brandon Cooks to try to fill in that hole that would be left from DeAndre Hopkins, and they also did sign Randall Cobb to a 3-year contract, making their four wide receiver sets consisting of Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks, Kenny Stills, and Randall Cobb. Don't get me wrong, that's a solid four wide receiver set, but think about how different your outlook for this team is if it's DeAndre Hopkins, Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks, and then either Kenny Stills or Randall Cobb. Just having that guy there that just he will go up, make a play on anybody kind of guy. Obviously, he's known as the top three wide receiver in the league, arguably the top wide receiver in the league for a reason. And losing that, you're just going to feel it. There's no way that you don't next season, in my opinion. Um, and as for running backs, Carlos Hyde did walk away, but Duke Johnson is still a solid number two option there. So I would expect the running game to continue to be solid like it was all of last season. But I don't see how, barring a just outstanding performance um, from Deshaun Watson, I don't see how there's not kind of a fall off a little bit in the passing attack, just because they had so much talent there already, and even though maybe you could argue they're a little bit more well-rounded and a little bit less top-heavy, I just find it hard to believe that you lose a top three wide receiver and continue to perform. Um, I know I'm harping a lot on their off-season moves. That's partially because, even for a draft grade, I understand that, but it's partially because they also weren't very active in the draft. When I was looking at this, I was like, oh well, maybe their plan was to, move up, get a big name wide receiver, in the draft, and then, hopefully he becomes the next DeAndre Hopkins, and they had a plan or something in the works there, and then they really didn't go and do that, as you'll see in a second. So. Um, they weren't particularly active in the offseason, aside from the moves I already mentioned for the offense. They had agreed to bring in defensive tackle Timmy Jernigan, excuse me, former Eagle, but that deal fell through. And they did extend starting nose tackle Brandon Dunn, but other than that, I didn't really see any super notable defensive pickups either. So if this was an off-season rating, you can already kind of hear where this is going, but it's not. So let's go talk about the draft. Moving on. Like I had said, I was expecting them to kind of go wide receiver, and they didn't until much later in the draft. They started off with going with Ross Blacklock out of TCU, defensive tackle. Um, he's taller and leaner than the average defensive tackle. To me, he just looks athletic and he has good top end speed. Um, from what I was reading, he's a great run defender with the strength to block shed in one-on-one situations. He's also got quick hands and feet that allow him to get in the backfield and blow up plays. Um, he, his sack numbers won't really show it, but he's more of a pass rushing threat than you would expect. Um, and he's expecting to kind of fill in after the loss of DJ Reader to free agency. And he's officially listed as your backup nose tackle to Brandon Dunn, as I brought up before. So solid guy. Maybe he'll help kind of plug up those holes a little bit. 25th in rushing yards allowed, as I mentioned earlier. So maybe he'll be able to kind of plug up that defensive line a little bit. Also, the defensive line, as usual. Hopefully J.J. Watt stays healthy. I mean, the defense just looks different when he's completely healthy and he's at his best. So hopefully that will sort itself out. But next up, they didn't have a first round pick, so that was their second. That was their first pick of the draft, was in the early second round. Next up, they went with Jonathan Greenard outside linebacker out of Florida, or Grenard. I don't know. He's got average height, but he's well built with long arms. I would say he's kind of got average like top end speed, but he's got good initial quickness and power. From what I was reading, he's believed to kind of be a bit of an overachiever. His pass rushing is a bit limited because of his inability to close at times, um, and he's listed as a backup linebacker right now, but he's expected to get reps this season. From what I was reading, he's going to need to rely a lot on just like straight technique in order to continue to be effective at the next level. So it's going to be interesting to see how his game is able to translate. Obviously, I'm never gonna. You're almost never gonna hear me like wish poorly on these guys or on these teams. So hopefully that works itself out. But next up, offensive tackle out of North Carolina, they went with Charlie Heck. Um, excuse me. Um, he's able to push speed rushers past the quarterback. From what I was reading, meaning like they don't just tend to beat him often around the edge and get into quarterback's face. He's kind of able to create a little bit of a pocket, some breathing room for the quarterback, which is good. Even if his initial move or his initial kind of quote unquote punch misses, he works hard to get back inside his man and stay in position. Um, he gets into position well and blocks off and walls off well and run blocking as well. But from what I was reading, he does tend to fall off blocks a bit late. And also, this was a quote from ESPN. His pads tend to rise, so we're gonna have to kind of watch and see um, how he's able to develop as his years go on. As of right now, he is listed as the backup right tackle. Um, Next up, John Reed, cornerback out of Penn State. He's got good quickness and above average speed, but he's on the smaller size, and physical route runners can sometimes create separation on him. He showed some ball skills. He had 7 picks at Penn State, but he is at a disadvantage in jump ball situations because of his size, and he is also shown to be a bit of an inconsistent tackler who struggles to get off of blocks. This is listed as a third string cornerback as we get into the fifth round here. Or that may have even been a fourth round pick. Yeah, that was late in the fourth round, getting close to the fifth round. So, um, not gonna, you gotta sometimes just take the raw talent and hope to develop them, which is also what they did with their last pick in the fifth, and with their only pick in the fifth round and their last pick of the draft. Isaiah Kutler, wide receiver out of Rhode Island. He's shown decent speed and he seems to track the deep pass well. And it does look like he could um, used to put on some weight. He just kind of seems like he's a little bit on the lighter side. But he does have good body control, and he has flashed the ability to win 50-50 balls at times. He does have lots of opportunity after the catch to make stuff happen. So getting the ball in his hands, once he gets up to NFL speed, getting the ball in his hands is going to be important. He does need to work on his route running a bit. And again, I would say he's a raw prospect. He's got the height and speed to become a very effective receiver, but he has to put in the hours and he has to put in the work to be able to get to that level. He is listed as in the third kind of set of wide receivers. So I wouldn't expect him to get a ton of playing time this season, if any at all. But hopefully he can develop. But those were the only 5 picks that the Texans made in the draft, and um, you do have a couple guys that will get some looks, some reps this season, but I don't see the guy that's gonna step in and make that immediate like difference making guy for this season. And after losing DeAndre Hopkins, like I said, I would have expected them to maybe be looking to move up, get another wide receiver. So, and they didn't. So they either have a lot of faith in Will Fuller to be able to step up and be that guy for them in moments when they need it, and allow Brandon Cooks to be what he is, as we've been seeing with him for the Rams and throughout his career. But I don't know. I don't know that Brandon Cooks is that guy. I think he has the potential to be, but I don't know that he's that guy. I mean, throughout his career, he's shown
Bill O'Brien
bursts,
needs to
right?
get.
I mean, he had 4 seasons in here where he was 1,000 yards, but then last season only 500 yards. So your hope is that he returns to this form, and he can kind of give you somewhere near that. But I don't see the guy that is meant to replace such an outstanding talent, DeAndre Hopkins, and I don't think that they really made a move to address that in the draft. So you're kind of, as far as a Houston Texans fan goes, they didn't do much in the draft. I don't have much to grade them on. They didn't have a first round pick. They didn't have a lot of picks either. I'm not gonna whatever grade I give them right here, which I guess I'll go look at now. This grade is only for the draft. It's not rating the rest of their offseason at all. But I think I'm even just for the draft, I think I'm gonna have to kind of give them probably a C, honestly, maybe even a C minus. I think I'm gonna give them the nod. Then go ahead and give them a C. But I don't see the guy of these 5 that's meant to be, the outstanding difference maker, like guy that you can point to and say he's our guy moving forward. Like, I don't see that guy from these picks here. And honestly, like I think they kind of needed it. I mean, like I said earlier, I feel like they kind of overproduced last season. I think they were a little bit overachievers. I mean, there was no number that you could point to and say this is the reason why this team was great. There was like a lot of their overall kind of offensive defensive stats were kind of middle of the pack, if not kind of near the bottom, especially on the defensive side. So I think the team needed help, and I think that if they want to continue to give Deshaun Watson the team that he needs around him to continue to produce, they needed to make those moves in the draft to kind of get younger, try to get guys, and I didn't see them do that. So, Matt, do you have an opinion?
Yeah, they just have nothing that really went. I mean, like that's just it. Like they're not. There's no one who's you're gonna get outside the first round who's gonna replace DeAndre Hopkins. And I mean, I guess I'm a tougher grader, but I think a C is generous. I don't think they did much. I don't think they did anything in the draft. They got a couple of depth guys who aren't going to see much playing time. There's nothing really here that says, "Oh yeah, we're filling a need." So
I mean, technically they did need depth, so I guess
yeah,
I'm
but
trying to
they
look on
had.
the tops. I'm trying not to grade too harshly because all these kids are raw talent coming um out of college. So I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. Um, but yeah, I mean I could easily see this grade being lower. I'm trying to give them a little bit of a nod. I didn't see the pick that was the real big difference maker.
Mm,
What would you have given them?
uh, my generous would have been a C minus. I was thinking like a D. Like a
Yeah, I mean, I even said I was thinking about C minus, so I'll concede that and make it a C minus. I just don't see. I mean, maybe I'm completely sleeping, and one of these guys is gonna have a breakout season, and I'm gonna be proven completely wrong. But I just don't
well, yeah,
see the
they'll be
guy in
proving
this
both of us wrong. They'll
draft.
be proving everyone wrong if they get a breakout guy out of any breakout season out of any of these draft picks. But how likely is that to happen?
Yeah, so I think that's where I'm gonna land on it. I'm gonna go ahead and say C minus. I don't see the guy here that's gonna make that big of a difference this season. Again, this is only a grade for the draft, so I'm not even talking about what happened. I talked a lot about what happened in the offseason because it meant a lot in terms of team positioning and what they should have been looking for in the draft, in my opinion. Technically, running backs this as a need. You make a trade, that kind of a trade to bring in a running back. Suddenly, that's not a team need anymore. You know what I mean? So, it explains why they didn't do some of the things that did or didn't do some of the things that people were saying that they should or shouldn't have done going into the draft. That's why I talked about it so much. But in terms of the draft, I just don't see the impact play. I do see a couple impact players here. I do believe these top two picks especially will see some playing time and could maybe have an impact for this team. But I don't see the guy that's gonna help keep this franchise moving in the right direction. But let's not harp on it for too long. Hopefully I am wrong. Um, Monday you go to the Astros, right?
Yes. Got
Okay.
to go to the Houston Trash Cans. Very excited.
So that will be it for these series this week. We may come out with a video sometime this weekend about the NBA and their new move coming out of COVID. Um, but we will have to see what the deal is with that. But leave a like on the video. Comment down below if you agree with me or think I was dead wrong. Hit the subscribe button. Check out our Discord and our social media in the description down below. And again, the original clips video will also have the link posted in the description below. So make sure to check that out. Um, but with that being said, we will see you next time. Peace.